Hi guys, Kevin Ellis Jr. here with the Apex Racing Academy with this track guide for the Nordschleife at Industriefahrten in the Porsche Cup car. So before we actually get into the lap guide, obviously this is going to be a bit of a longer one just with the nature of the track. But a little bit of advice I want to give you guys before we, as I say, get into the actual track guide itself. When it comes to actually testing at this place and what I done for this data pack, you'll find out that when obviously you go to do your laps, you start in this pit lane over on the right hand side here. Now if you're to reverse up the pit lane, or you can do a flick spin and then you drive round this corner and then round to here, you'll see on your delta, your little black box delta, it will flick over and say that you're in sector 10. If you then reset somewhere around here, it will then reset you all the way back at the start of the back straight. You can then drive down the straight, get to here, like what I've done, and then start your lap straight away, so you don't need to do a full out lap. You can get timed laps done straight away. This will cut your lap time, or this will cut your practice time almost in half. With this little trick, a lot of people don't really know. It works with all the Nordschleife layouts. Even if you've got the GP circuit, you just reverse up the GP pit lane to the start of it, reset, and it will throw you to the back of the start of the back straight. So anyway, with that out of the way, we'll bring ourselves down in towards turn 1. Now, you can see this sort of join in the wall on the right hand side here. We're going to get onto the brakes just as we come past this. There's a big bump right here. Just as you come over this little rise, the car's inclined to lock up. So we come over the top of that crest there, down into second gear, you can see there, and we drive it in actually really, really deep here. As opposed to trying to get the run off, we actually carry a lot of speed into the corner. It's cambered, so you can carry a little bit more speed in as well, and the camber will just help pull the car around. And we kind of sacrifice the exit just a little bit here. And then on the exit, out to this curb on the outside. Down the hill, then into this right-hander. We're going to lift as we come past this 2 kilometer board. So we're just going to have a little bit of a lift just to get the nose in. Once you catch us inside curb here, there's a bit of a groove that will pull the car in the corner, and we get back to full throttle just so we get to the apex of that. Now, into here, this is all about entry speed into here. You want to try and carry as much speed into this left-hander as you can, and sort of sacrifice the exit again. The exit speed isn't so essential. So you're braking just as you come over the start of this this graffiti here, down into 4th, aiming to get as close to this curb on the left-hand side as you can without hitting it, which you can see there. Then we're going to shift into 3rd, just there, and then flick it into the right-hander. Again, not taking too much of the curb, just kind of leaning into it there, and then right as soon as you hit that apex, you're on the power, out to the left-hand side, and you want to try and bring it back somewhat central. You don't want to be far over on the right hand side, but you do want to be more in the middle of the track to then go over the left. You can cut over the grass if you need to, but it was a little bit harsh and I wasn't a big fan of it. You can see there we've sort of clipped the curb on the left hand side there, and how it sort of throws the car to the right a little bit, so that wasn't really ideal. But then just getting onto the brakes again around the graffiti mark, up over the curb on the inside, then picking up the throttle as we're on that. And again through this section we are in, you can see here, 3rd gear. So we're just keeping it in 3rd through here. I'm pretty sure we keep it in... Actually, maybe downshift into 2nd for this bit. No, sorry, we're keeping it in 3rd, my apologies. And again, you can see as we come over this curb on the right-hand side, you don't want to hit the curb on the left or take a huge chunk off of it. You can see we just sort of catch the nice flow and the nice camber of the curb. Out to the curb on the right, and then as we come over this big love heart in the middle of the track that someone's very kindly drawn. Or you can even alternatively use this change in tarmac colour as you come over the top of that onto the brakes. Turn into the right-hander, and you don't want to take a whole lot off this curb, you just want to wrap right around the top of it. You can see we're not all up against the grass. If you just wrap the top of it, as the car comes off, it's not going to pop off and land and slam. It will be a little bit smoother. So up the hill then in 6th gear, as we come up over the crest, you're going to want to brake just at this little lay-by here. You can see you're on the brakes, down into 5th, flick it in, and then right before the right front gets to the inside, you're right back onto the power, straight back to 100%. Carry the speed through here. Try and get as close to the curb on the right hand for the 2nd apex, and that gives you some space on the exit. You can see we just brushed the grass there and keeping it nice and tight to the curb. Again, we're flat out down here. Then the left-hander just before the hairpin. As you come past the 5 kilometer board on the right hand side there, just want to get onto the brakes nice and lightly, down into 5th. Oh sorry, keep it in 6th, my apologies again. Yeah, so brake at the 5 kilometer board, keep it in 6th, and then get back to power just as soon as you hit the apex. You see this change in tarmac up here, you want to get onto the brakes nice and early, wait a fair ways before that. But you can see we're nice and gradual into the brakes, slow up to threshold, and then we want to be at threshold by the time we get to that change in tarmac. So again, you can see the brake percentage as we go over the top of that. We're at threshold, holding it down into third then for this corner, and then get it in nice and tight to the inside. Again, there's a groove next to the curb here. It's going to pull the car around the corner, and you can see how early we're going to pick up the throttle as well. We're way back here, picking up the throttle, and then by the time you get to the graffiti, the graffiti on the exit, you can get just about to 100%. You just a little bit of patience, then 100% right there. Use the curb on the exit, and then down the hill, obviously all flat out. Into here, you can see this sign up on the right hand side. We're getting onto the brakes just before that. Alternatively, probably the best way to view it is as you're coming down here, you can see all this graffiti on the right hand side, and then once you get to about here, it stops. There's a big clean patch up here. So as we're getting to the end of this graffiti right here, onto the brakes there, just where the graffiti ends on the right hand side. Down into fifth for this corner, and then you're going to see as we come in here, we're on the brakes. I'm going to give it just a little blast of throttle, just to lift the front nose, to get the car over that curb and clear it without the splitter hitting it hard. And then once we land, we're back onto the brakes again, down into fourth. Keep it in fourth for this right hander, and then once you get to this sort of circular marking here, onto the throttle. Not quite getting to 100%. And then you want to, like, by the time you get to here, this looks quite unconventional. Obviously, you think you want to be on the right-hand side coming into here, but actually, you want to carry speed out at the right-hander and then exit as far to the left as you can. Braking from the left-hand side, braking down into second gear, and then you're braking in basically a straight line so that you do sort of end up on the racing line as you turn in. You can see here slightly, we've just missed the apex by about a tire's width or so. So we missed the apex slightly on the left, but then short shifting up into third, modulating the throttle until you can see these sort of tire marks on the inside. Once you go over this tire mark on the inside here, this is your key to really pick up the throttle. And then once you've cleared all those tire marks up to 100%, and again, make use of the curbing on the outside on the exit. Into this next double left in, again you can see there's a sort of tarmac patch here. It's a little bit darker than the rest of it. I'm braking here so that I'm at threshold by the time I get to the end of that, which you can see here. So we get onto the brakes. Again, it's a pretty light braking zone. We're at threshold. Again, it's a very, very low threshold. We're not holding a whole lot on here at all. And then picking up the throttle right as we get to the left-hander. This sort of zebra crossing looking marking on the track, that's going to be your throttle pickup point as we go over the top of that. Up to about 75% throttle. Just getting up to 100, and then here I've ran just a little bit wide, which you can see we're lifting out the throttle prematurely, getting onto the brakes just on the grass, then once I'm off the grass, up to threshold. And normally, of course, when you're not obviously braking on the grass, as you come past where the sort of concrete on the outside turns to grass, this is going to be your brake marker right around here, which you can see we have actually braked at. Just we had two tires on the grass on the right hand side, which made things a little bit more difficult. And as we come in here, you want to bring it in nice and tight in third gear. Unfortunately here you can see I've just clipped the curb on the inside. You don't quite want to do that. There's a little bit of a lip right here that you can see that sort of sticks out, and I've just caught it at a bit of an unfortunate angle, so it shot the car maybe half a car width wider than I would have liked on the exit of this left-hander, but through the right, car's got enough grip, keep it pinned, should be all good. And then down towards the hairpin. Again, come past this sign up on the left-hand side, on the brakes, down into third gear. And there's going to be a double apex corner here, so you're aiming for your first apex right around here. Which you can see we've hit that first apex, still trailing all the way down the hill. And then you can see we sort of move wide here, and then this is going to be our second apex right around here. So it's quite a narrow double apex. We're not washing out to the middle of the track. It's fairly tight, but it is a double apex nonetheless. So you clip the white line on the inside, drift out maybe a tire's width or two, and then bring it back in as you apply the power to hit that second apex, and then make use of the curb on the outside. Through this fast chicane, it's a little bit hard to spot, but through here there's a little bit of a divot in the grass, so you can see it sort of follows this black line. There's a little bit of a dip right around here. I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to pick that up on the recording. There's a bit of a dip right around here. Alternatively, what you can use is these tire marks if you're having issues spotting that. As you come over the start of this, I like to just lift out to about 50% throttle. And as the car compresses in at the track, that's when I get back to 100, because the car's not going to snap loose when you do that. avoid the curb on the right hand side, and then here we come into miss, hit, miss. So you want to start getting onto the brakes roughly where, or you can see we're getting on the brakes here, but you want to get to threshold roughly by the time you get to the start of this curb. So you watch the brake input here as we come past the start of that curb. You see we're already beginning just to sort of trail off the brakes. So into here there really isn't much of a brake marker at all. It is more kind of muscle memory and just trying to judge your distance to these curbs either side. You're going to go from 5th down into 4th, and again miss the first apex, hit the second apex right around here. You see we're picking up the throttle just before we get to that apex as well. Picking up the throttle just before we get to the apex on the inside. So miss, hit, and then miss on the exit. Into the hairpin then, life's a little bit difficult here again. Pretty bad on our brake markers. There's some sort of tyre marks on the track that are all you've really got to go by. But again, from here, it's really is just sort of muscle memory and just trying to gauge where you are in relation to the corner. Tyre marks are really not visible at all. You can see quite a few of them on entry here, but that's really about it. It's just a case of trying to brake before you get to the very vague tyre marks, but into here it really was hard to spot. So you're down into 3rd at this point, clip the apex on the right, down into 2nd, and then you start aiming for the first apex, and again this is a double apex, so you clip the first one, drift a little bit wide, and then bring the throttle in as you bring it in towards the second apex. Nice and aggressive back to power. This car post build, it has a lot of rear grip nowadays. The differential's been fixed. Combined with the new damage model as well. Curb handling is a little bit different as well. You're going to probably feel the car bottom out a few times as well, so that's why the front ride height's been raised up just a little bit. So into the lowest section of the track altitude wise, in relation to the sea level. So as you come into here, you're going to be braking right at the start of this graffiti right here, and again down into 3rd gear for this one. You can see like late shift into 3rd. As we hit the apex, bring the power in. Don't want to be all out over this curb on the right hand side. Keep it a little bit more central, and then get it as close to or as far over to the left as you can. You want to hit the brakes. It's really kind of hard. I mean, you can see this sort of graffiti sticking across here. The Thomas that someone's written on the circuit here. This is roughly where you want to get on the brakes, just before the line right around here that someone's drawn. Down into 3rd gear, and then nice and early back to throttle, which you can see here. So we're picking up the throttle nice and early before the apex. Obviously, it's being uphill, you need to get on that power as soon as you can, which you can see. Clip the late apex up to 100% throttle, and then track it out to the curb on the outside up into 4th. Flat through this left kink, no real issues. Keep it as far to the left as you can. You see I have a bit of a tree sticking through the fence here. This is going to be your brake marker for the right hander, and down into 3rd gear. Now as you're coming in, keep it as far to the left as you can, and then you're going to see this red graffiti on the inside. You want to try and get your right hand side tyres to go just over that red graffiti, which you can see right here. Right hand side tyres, just go over it in 3rd, and then as you get into the dip of the corner with all this graffiti right around here, start to bring the throttle into it up to 100%. Track it out on the exit. Careful not to use the curb on the outside because it will spin the car. Up through here is all flat out, so we're trying to skip through this as quick as we can. As we come to the curb on the right hand side, then get on at the curb and start braking just somewhere in the middle of the curb. Again, there's no real brake markers, but you do want to make sure that you're beginning to trail off. Down into 5th, right before you get to the apex, hard on the power, almost straight to 100%. Track it out on the exit. Through here's flat as well. It's a little bit tight, but it should be okay. And as we come into here, a little bit of sun glare on the track, so it's not really ideal. But what I was doing was I was trying to sort of spot this bit of graffiti that starts right around here. See someone's drawn something on the circuit here. So I'm using that as a bit of a reference here. You can see the graffiti here, a bit of a clean part of the track here, and then this graffiti starts here. So I'm getting to threshold by the time we get over the top of that. But you can see we're at threshold and then begin to trail out as we get down into 2nd gear. Again, here's going to be a bit of a double apex. You're going to hit this first apex right here, drift out just ever so slightly, and then as you get the power, you hit this second apex on the exit. You can see we've just clipped the curb as well on the inside. It cost us a few hundreds. Then out to the curb on the outside. Big bump on the far left, so move right a little bit more central, just to avoid that bump. Talking maybe a couple hundreds here at most. And then as we're coming into the carousel, we're going to be in 4th gear. You can see we have the graffiti ahead of us here, a bit of a clean track, and then this graffiti here. Braking down into 2nd gear, and you want to try and drive it in as hard as you can, obviously, but if you're driving too hard, you're going to fall out, so just try and be as careful as you can. Picking up the throttle quite early. Again, no real reference for that, it just goes off feeling once the car's landed and settled and feels good. Start getting on at the power, keeping it as tight as we can. You can see we're sort of modulating the throttle just to try and get the thing to turn, and then as soon as you can see the exit coming up on your screen on the left hand side, that's when you're going to get to 100%. So you can see we're sort of modulating the throttle just to get the car to turn, and then as it pops up and out, shift to third to stop you from hitting the rev limiter, and away you go. Keeping it tight, obviously, to the right hand side, flat up through here, through the left. Braking just at the start of this curve on the right hand side as well, as we come into here. Down one gear, into fourth. Aiming for the apex, picking up the throttle just before you get there. As you can see, bringing the throttle in just before we get to the apex on the right. Just getting to 100% throttle, then lifting out as we get the nose into here. Again, as soon as you hit the apex, hard back on the gas up to 100%. Careful not to hit this curb at too sharp an angle, it can spit you off. And up into here, as soon as you get onto the curb on the left hand side, you're looking for this graffiti that pops up right around here. As soon as you get to the start of this graffiti here, you're onto the brakes. Down into third, hit the apex, as you can see there, as we bring it in. Looking for the apex, right around here. As soon as you hit that 100% throttle, use all the track on the exit. Out to the curb on the left, bring it to the centre, back across to the left, and then as you bring it in here, right as you get to the start of this curb here, off the throttle, little dab of brake, just to get the nose in, just to start getting it turned. And then as soon as you get to this change in tarmac colour, I'm going to give it just another little burst of throttle, just to keep the speed up and get a little bit more rotation. And then as it changes colour again on the exit, right around here, you can see just here, back onto the brakes again. Down into fourth, and just going to leave it in fourth as well. As you come through here, we hit that first apex, a little bit graffiti on the right, bring in the throttle, cut as much off this left as you can. See we're up over the curb on the left, just getting to full throttle, then lifting for the right. Just as we bring it in, car's going to land and slam a little bit here. You can see it sort of understeers a little bit, and then that pushes it out onto the grass. Two wheels on the grass here is absolutely fine. Opens up the corner quite nicely for the next corner coming up, and then you want to get on the brakes just before you get to the start of this, the start of this graffiti here, which you can see on the brakes. Down into fourth. Or is that down into third actually? Yeah, we're in fourth. My apologies. So round fourth, as we come up over the crest, just getting to full throttle at the top of the hill. You can see up over the top, using his curb on the exit, and then as we come over this big, it almost looks like a VW badge. I'm not sure if it actually is. I haven't actually had a look at it in all honesty. But as you come over the top of that, onto the brakes, down into third, looking in towards the apex right here, looking here, clip the apex, bring the throttle into it, drift it out to the middle of the track, and start looking for a second apex right up here with the red and white ends. Now we're looking here, once we get the car to there, looking at the brake marker right here, onto the brakes, start turning in before you can really see the apex, and again down into third gear, and as soon as the car hits that apex, throttle, power out the corner, and then watch for the off track on the exit. You can use quite a fair bit of this curb. As you come to the end of the curb here, you can see we're just starting to get onto the brakes as well, just before you get to the end of the red and white. Again, down into third, looking in towards the apex. Right here, as soon as you hit this graffiti, you're going to be almost at full throttle. You can see we're bringing it in nice and early before we get to the start of the graffiti on the left hand side. Gradually bringing the throttle into it, using the curb on the outside, 100% throttle just before you get to that curb. Nice and quick, bring it back across to the right, and then right as you come into this compression here, you can see as you're coming in, is this sort of, again, this circular logo right around here as you come over the top of that, braking just after it, getting to threshold. When I'm coming in here, I'm braking more so that I'm at threshold by the time I get to this change in tarmac, which you can see there. Dropping off the brakes quite quickly. Obviously it's uphill, so when I get off the brakes, and you're going to see how early we bring the throttle in here. Again, you can see there's this graffiti all here that then ends, and then bring the throttle in, nice and aggressive on the power. Aiming for the curb on the outside here, try and hit it at as flush an angle as you can, nice shallow angle, up over the top of the curb, pop off at the end, and then we come down the hill, obviously flat out all the way through here, close to the curb on the right, and as we come into the dipper here, you're going to brake just at this graffiti here. As we get a little bit closer, you can sort of see it, this sort of line that comes across here. We're braking just before that, down into fourth, or in fifth, sorry, land first, let the car settle, and then into fourth, just to obviously prevent you from popping an engine. As you land here again with the new damage model, you're going to see a big puff of smoke come off the car there. That's all good, don't worry about it, you're not going to damage the car. Down into fourth, start turning the car in as you hit the first apex, bring the power into it. Not quite up to 100% throttled, nice and patient, just modulating the car to keep the speed up, keep the rotation. Then as you hit the second apex, you're home and dry, up to 100% throttle, keep it in the middle of the track, and then through the left you should be able to keep this pinned. I just a little confidence lift you can just see there. I wasn't 100% sure, I just wanted to make sure I got through the corner fine, but you can do it with 100%. And then track out to the curb on the outside. Great section of track this, flat out, keep it pinned, but it's not easy pinned. All the way through here, dodging in between the curbs, trying to make them, try and keep it as smooth as you can without causing too much speed. And then finally, as we come in here, you can see the start of all this graffiti on the right hand side right here. As I come over the top of that, onto the brakes, down into fifth, and we're going to be looking up the hill for the apex right around here. You can see these tire marks just starting right around here, and that's right where we bring the throttle into it. Again, as the tire marks are there, we bring the power in, keeping it in fifth, and we bring it to the sort of centre of the track. You don't need to be far over to the right hand side. Down into fourth, down into third, quite a late downshift, there it is. And then as we begin to turn in for the apex, once the car is hooked and you can tell that the angle is right and you're going to be able to exit in the right line, bring the power into the car and then begin to track it out on exit. Feel free to use a little bit of this curb on the outside as well, just to carry a little bit of extra speed. Just make sure you pop back on before the grass. See, we just brush a couple of blades of grass there. And then there's this graffiti on the left hand side here. This first little bit of graffiti here going to be your brake marker. And we're going to be into third gear for the mini carousel. Now there's a little bit passive through here on this specific lap, which you're going to see here. You can probably brake a couple meters later. As we trail it in, you're going to drop the car into the banking, but almost straight away you bring the power into it. So you can see we've dropped into the banking and straight away power's in there. Getting as close to the curb and then inside as you can, and then as you're coming through up to 100%, popping out the end of it, and feel free to extend out to the right hand side if you need to, just to carry the speed. As we come up the hill, you can see this yellow piece of graffiti right here. As we come over the top of that, on the brakes, down into fourth, and then pick up the throttle nice and early before the apex. There we go. Bring the throttle in, clipping the apex up to 100%, up over the crest, and then you can see here there's all these branches sticking through the catch fence on the left hand side. You're going to bring the throttle out of it, drop it out, begin to turn it in, keep the throttle at like 50%. Through here you just want to try and modulate it just to keep the line right, and then you want to keep it as tight to the curb on the inside as you can. So through here you can see we're keeping it tight to the inside as we can, and then once you get to the start of this curb on the inside you get to 100% throttle and the car should absolutely stick to the track. Flat out down the dot on her, obviously going to be a great overtaking opportunity. And then as we come through here, come to the end of the lap finally. Thanks for sticking with us this long if you have, guys. As you come through the right hander then, starting just to lift out of it ever so slightly, just to prevent me from kind of overshooting the corner. Gives up maybe a couple hundredths to potentially save a good couple tenths from running deep. Start to brake as you come over the start of this graffiti right here. So on the brakes, down into fifth, down into fourth, up over the bump on the inside here on the left hand side. You can see it's quite a big bump there, and then once we're over that, down into third, and then down into second. Start looking for the apex curb here, and again, you similar to the start of the lap, you only want to kind of wrap the top of the red and white right here. You don't want to be all up over the flat concrete on the inside. So you're up over the red and white, and then inside as it drops off up to 100% throttle, up into third. A little bit of a lift because at this point the rear tires are pretty hot, so through here the car can snap on you. So lift out ever so slightly to like 60-75%, back to 100% as you bring it across to the left, and then into the final corner. Bit of an awkward one this one, not really any markers for you, but as you come through you can see the tarmac on the left hand side, getting to threshold by the time getting to threshold by the time the grass meets the tarmac, which you can see there, and then down into third gear, or down to second gear, sorry. Driving it in nice and deep, and as soon as you hit the apex, pick up the throttle and track the car right out, make full use of this curbing on the outside. with that, guys, that's a lap of the industry farting. So, as I say, thanks for sticking with us so long. I know it's been almost a 25-minute tutorial, but hopefully this has been informative to you guys. But with that, best of luck in your first week of the new season, and we hope to catch you back on the channel next week.